I don't owe nothing. He got all his songs already. How you think he got so hot? Came out with all them tapes. I did that. I put them hooks together. Yeah. I made incredible music. All he did was rhyme 16s. Well, you know, I made the hooks. I made the melodies. Yeah. I made the shit, dog. I'm the man. Just enough to get my room so I could ram his shit up, ram it up his ass. Right? My window was there. He tried to grab me. So when he came in the window, I punched him in the...
Max B and Jim Jones were once tighter than blood, but the moment Jim pushed that loyalty aside, everything flipped instantly. Max didn't stay this silent weapon in Jim's back pocket. He turned into the one storm Jim could never outrun.
Jim Jones, compare the names. Look, Max Bigavel, Jim Jones. That don't even add up. That's not on my level, man.
Fans were stunned when whispers started spreading that Max might have gotten involved with Jim's girl, wrecked his whip, and stirred up Harlem just to make a statement. Max wasn't bluffing. Charlie Wingate grew up in Harlem, New York, right in the middle of that hard uptown pressure. His story started in the Abraham Lincoln housing projects, where survival was the only language anyone spoke. His childhood wasn't light. His mother battled addiction and cycled in and out of prison, leaving his grandmother to carry the family on her back. She was the one stable anchor he had, but even she couldn't shield him from the streets waiting right outside their door. Long before the East Coast started chanting his hooks word for word, young Charlie found his voice in the Harlem Boys Choir. That's where the first sparks of the Max B wave appeared. The effortless melodies, the sing-rap flow, the drifting tone that would eventually define an era. But even music couldn't block out the danger creeping closer every year. By 18, Max was already caught up in street trouble that changed his whole path. In 1997, he got hit with a robbery case and ended up doing around 8 years. Time most people would crack under. But Max wasn't built like most people. Prison didn't break him, it refined him. When he came home in 2005, he returned with a new name, a sharper mindset, and the kind of confidence only real experience can carve into a person. That's when the world met Max Bigavelli, a name inspired by legends like Biggie, Machiavelli, Tupac, and Jay-Z. In his mind, he was the perfect blend: smooth delivery, painful honesty, and relentless hustle wrapped into one.
My name is Max B, aka Max Bigavel. We know Bigavel stands for Big Jig and Pac, right? But where did the name...
Big Jig and Machiavelli, baby.
Yeah.
Big Jig and Machiavelli.
By the time Max got back, Harlem was already on fire. The diplomats ran the city. Cameron and Jim Jones had the whole neighborhood lit. Max reconnected with Cam, and through him met Jim. It didn't take long before he signed to Jim's Bird Gang label and linked up with iconic Harlem producer Dame Grease. The moment they stepped into the studio together, it clicked. Instantly. Max dropped his first mixtape, $1 Million Baby, in 2006, and the streets went crazy. His voice, his wild charisma, his raw, unfiltered energy, anything he touched felt different in the best way. It was like Harlem had just uncovered a walking lightning bolt. Bird Gang suddenly had two rising stars, Max B and Stack Bundles. With both of them behind him, Jim Jones was sitting on a gold mine. Max became Jim's secret cheat code, lacing hooks and verses that turned every track into a problem. Songs like Baby Girl became instant classics, and anytime Max's voice floated across a beat, the whole vibe jumped to another level. But no matter how bright the music burned, the streets stayed stuck to Max like a shadow he couldn't outrun. And in September 2006, things spiraled fast. Through his ex, Gina Conway, Max heard about a flashy guy named Alan J. Plowden, a smooth talker running a mortgage and mail fraud hustle, rolling around in luxury cars and flashing big money. Gina told Max all about him, and according to her, jealousy mixed with opportunity pushed things into dangerous territory. She claimed Max straight up told her they could run a lick and everybody involved would come out eating.
Charlie Wingate, aka Max B, a rapper, about the men's money. Then Wingate reaches out to this man, Calvin Lear.
What happened next is still argued about to this day, but the ending was nothing short of tragic. Max wasn't even on the scene when everything went down, yet prosecutors pushed the narrative that he was the brains behind the whole setup. Gina, living fast, hustling, stripping, and moving reckless, testified that Max told her and his stepbrother, Kelvin Sims Leardom, to hit Plowden at a Holiday Inn in New Jersey. The plan sounded easy. Wait until he hit the club, break into the room, grab the cash, and disappear before sunrise. But the mission was messy from the start. Gina and Sims reportedly got lost for hours, circling around, missing exits, burning time, and reaching the hotel way too late. When they finally broke in, Plowden was already back, knocked out in bed next to another woman. And then, out of nowhere, David Taylor walked into the room, someone who wasn't even supposed to be there. Sims panicked so hard he fired a shot straight into Taylor's face, execution style, turning a sloppy robbery into a full-blown murder scene.
It all began the morning of September 22nd at the Fort Lee Holiday Inn. Police are called there after a man is shot to death. The victim, David Taylor from Florida, was staying in room 227.
Gina Conway was the first to fold. The moment she was arrested, she started talking fast. She gave investigators a 169-page statement and pointed directly at Max as the architect behind the entire setup. She claimed Max promised her everything: money, loyalty, a lifetime bond, if she played her part. Once the feds locked onto Max, they came heavy. He was arrested and hit with life-changing charges, including felony murder. His bail? A staggering $2 million. While Max sat in that cold cell, counting every minute, life kept spinning outside. Jim Jones, the same man who brought Max into Bird Gang, was suddenly everywhere. And that's when Jim dropped We Fly High, Ballin', a track that blew up overnight, his biggest hit ever. Max later claimed he wrote it, that he ghost wrote not just that song, but most of Jim's standout records. But while Jim was racking up interviews and wins, Max was behind bars, fighting for both his freedom and his legacy.
His job already. I don't owe nothing. He got all his songs already. How you think he got so hot? Came out with all them tapes. I did that. I put them hooks together. Yeah. I made incredible music. All he did was rhyme 16s. Well, you know, I made the hooks. I made the melodies. Yes. I made the shit, dog. I'm the man.
After 10 long months, Max's bail finally dropped to $90,000. That's when Jim re-entered the picture, but not with the loyalty everyone expected. Instead of backing Max like a brother, he allegedly turned the situation into leverage. Reports say Jim agreed to post bail only if Max signed over his publishing and locked himself into a 6-album deal under Jim. Sitting in a cell with no real options, desperate and drained, Max signed the contract. Jim walked away owning the publishing behind the legendary Wavy sound, and Max walked out of jail with his freedom, but almost nothing that truly belonged to him. Max B came home in July 2007 a different man, colder, sharper, and carrying a heavy, simmering anger he didn't bother hiding. He was broke, betrayed, and stuck in a deal that robbed him of his future. And the person benefiting most? The man he once called family, Jim Jones. Max sat in that cell, hearing the streets chant his name on mixtapes and DVDs like he was some hood legend. And the louder the world celebrated Wavy, the clearer it became. If Jim wasn't going to lift him up, Max was ready to flip the entire script himself. Max had every reason to feel played. This wasn't just business. This was straight financial damage on a personal level. Jim Jones basically owned Max's entire publishing. That meant every hook Max crafted, every smooth ad-lib, every catchy line people kept replaying, the checks weren't going to Max. They were going straight to Jim. Every last dollar. And this wasn't just about money anymore. The friendship was shattered. The loyalty was dead. Max was moving around with revenge on his mind and a heart frozen by how badly things had fallen apart. So he stepped away from Bird Gang with one mission. If Jim wasn't going to give him what he earned, Max was ready to rip him apart publicly. And nothing was off the table. Soon enough, Max linked up with the perfect partner for the war, French Montana. Back then, French wasn't a chart-topping superstar. He was a hood name with raw credibility, mostly known for his Cocaine City DVDs that showed the gritty reality of the Bronx and beyond. French already had his own issues with Jim from an old shooting incident and rumors that Jim was spreading dirt about him. So when Max and French connected, it wasn't just music. It was a bond built on mutual beef and real frustration. They formed Coke Wave, a crew that would become one of the hardest-hitting mixtape movements the streets had ever seen. Max already learned the hard way the industry wasn't saving him. He had no publishing, no label backing him, no machine behind his name. But he did have something more powerful, a voice the streets trusted, and an ability to make hits nobody could ignore. So he did what any real hustler does when boxed in. He went underground and took control. He started releasing his music for free, letting the world hear everything the industry tried to bury. And he wasn't just dropping songs. He was dropping verbal bombs aimed straight at Jim Jones and anyone tied to him. Max didn't hold back. The first major blow came through a mixtape, Public Domain 3. And from that moment, everyone knew things were about to explode. The mixtape cover alone shocked the city. Max standing in a cemetery beside tombstones labeled Millie, Jim Jones, Vanilla, and even flipping Jewel Santana into Joel Santana, comparing him to Millie Vanilli, the duo accused of faking their music. In Max's eyes, Jim and Jules were trying to surf the wave he created, and he wasn't shy about exposing it. He clowned them on tracks like Singing Rapping, dropping lines like, "I know them dudes need me, I was giving them the loop, but them dudes done blew it." Every bar was a fresh shot, delivered with that smirking confidence only Max had. But he didn't stop at music. He attacked images, reputations, everything Jim was trying to build. One of the wildest moments came when Max dropped She Touched It in Miami, a track where he hinted that Jim's longtime partner Chrissy Lampkin had been around him in ways that crossed lines. He didn't say anything explicit, just enough to spark doubt and laughter between the bars, making Jim look like he was getting played by his own circle. The streets ate it up instantly. Jim was stunned. He didn't expect Max to go this far. He tried denying everything, brushing Max off as a washed-up rapper who never had real momentum. He even claimed Max didn't write We Fly High. But the evidence said otherwise. Max's voice was all over those early reference tracks floating online. People started questioning just how much of Dipset's catalog carried Max's fingerprints. And Max wasn't just talking. He moved like he was truly ready for smoke. He even claimed Jim tried to set him up by boxing in his car. According to Max, he noticed the trap, rammed Jim's Bentley out of the way, and threw a couple of punches before peeling off. It sounded insane, but Max flashed the dents on his car like trophies.
Just enough to get my room so I could ram this up, ram it up in. Right? My window was there. He tried to grab. So when he came in the window, I punched him in his face.
French Montana and others backed the story, and soon it became Harlem folklore. Then came November 2008, and everything escalated. Max and French pulled up deep to a Manhattan building where Jim was recording and walked straight inside. They wanted Jim to know the city wasn't sweet for him anymore. Max later said Jim felt the heat and ended up calling the cops, making the whole moment even more embarrassing. Not long after, both sides clashed again at a Brooklyn club, turning the place into chaos. Chairs flying, K-9 units storming inside to shut it down. It looked like a movie scene, but for Max and Jim, it was real tension with real consequences. And by the time the dust settled, Max B had done more than disrespect Jim Jones. He turned him into a running joke across the streets. Max became a cult hero, a legend who didn't need a label cosign, even while stuck in contracts that robbed him of his own profits. He built his wave the underground way, dropping music people still blast today. But while the beef kept growing, Max was walking toward the biggest battle of his life, one that could freeze his entire wave in place forever. June 9th, 2009, Max stepped into the Bergen County Courthouse with the same wavy confidence he always carried. Cameras on him, supporters behind him, he moved like he believed the storm was about to break in his favor. His legal team came in strong, saying they tore apart the prosecution's main witness, Gina Conway, the woman at the center of it all. She had turned herself in and testified against Max and his stepbrother Kelvin in exchange for a better deal. Max's lawyer argued she wasn't telling the truth, calling her a bitter ex doing whatever she had to do to protect herself. But courtrooms don't care about swagger. They care about perception, evidence, stories the jury believes. And when the verdict came back, Max's world flipped instantly. Guilty on 9 of 11 counts, including armed robbery, conspiracy, aggravated assault, and felony murder. The prosecution said Max planned the whole thing, pushed Gina and Kelvin to do it, and expected to get paid even without being there. The entire case relied on Gina's testimony. She got her murder charges dropped to armed robbery and manslaughter, earning a recommended 18 years instead of a life-ending sentence. Max's team argued she twisted her story to save herself, even pointing out that at one point she said Max didn't know about any robbery. But the jury didn't buy it. September 3rd, 2009, Max B. was sentenced to 75 years in prison. He went from rising street icon to inmate in a single day. Earliest parole? 2042, a year that felt like another lifetime away. The streets felt the loss immediately. Mixtapes replayed everywhere. Fans talked about how his wave got trapped at its peak. But while supporters mourned, Jim Jones looked like he was celebrating from a business angle, like he had just played the coldest power move of his career. Music fades in. And remember, Jim still owned Max's publishing. Every hook Max laid down, every melody he built, every cent made from it slid straight into Jim's pockets. Jim would even clown Max in public every chance he got, tossing goofy nicknames at him, brushing him off as irrelevant, and saying Max was washed before he'd even really started. Jim talked like Max was no threat at all, like he was some old product gathering dust, something he used once and tossed aside. But the streets never erased Max B. Not then, not ever. And the truth? Things weren't nearly as locked in as Jim wanted people to think. Even behind those prison walls, Max refused to disappear. The streets still loved him, and his name carried a weight you simply couldn't bury. Max stayed tapped in with French Montana, DJs and independent labels, doing everything he could to stay present, stay relevant, and stay heard. Then came the shocker in 2016. After 7 years inside, Max's new legal team dropped a bombshell. They argued his original lawyer messed up his entire case, saying the lawyer wasn't focused on defending Max the right way, but was more interested in cashing out if Max beat the charges and blew up bigger. This move, called post-conviction relief, actually worked. The judge threw out Max's original 75-year sentence. Max took a plea for aggravated manslaughter, chopping 55 years off his time. His sentence dropped to 20 years, then down to 12. And with the years he had already served, a release date suddenly came into view. Max wasn't going to die in prison after all. His official release date was set for November 9th, 2025.
You were sentenced to 75 years. But then last July, you said you got reduced to 20 years and then to 12 years.
By now, Max B wasn't just a rapper. He was a legend, a myth, an influence way bigger than anyone expected. His fingerprints were everywhere, from underground freestyles to superstar albums. Kanye West tried to name his 2016 album Waves and had to publicly acknowledge Max after fans called him out. Kanye even included Max's voice on the project. Drake and Wiz Khalifa both said Max played a role in shaping them. Even Jim Jones, the same guy who spent years downplaying him, admitted in a rare, honest moment that Max B could have been bigger than Drake if he'd stayed free. Now, with 2025 closing in, one huge question hangs in the air. Are Max and Jim still enemies, or is the war finally done? Max, speaking from prison, sounded like a man who'd grown. He said he wanted to be better, a husband, a father of 4, and that old anger wasn't running his life anymore. He even hinted that maybe, just maybe, the beef could finally end. But Jim Jones wasn't on that same wavelength. Even though he and French Montana rebuilt their friendship and dropped music together in 2023, Jim made it clear that Max was a completely different story. He said he didn't wish Max harm, but he wasn't trying to get close either. And now, with Max said to walk out on November 2025, the whole world is watching. Will there be peace? Will there be music? Or will the wave crash into Harlem one last time?